So in the last video we looked at the 3D and materials workspace. Let's follow on from that and check out the various 3D types of model that you can create from your vectors. So we'll go back to our working file. We started by looking at extrusion, where we can kind of take a plane and stretch it out. Let's have a look at another option. Another option is to make just a plane. So that's kind of like a 2D object in 3D space. It doesn't kind of have any depth, but it has some space around it. So just like before, we can rotate around that that plane, and we can also add materials to it. I'm just going to keep the default material on there, but you could add one of your substance materials, and with the default you've got the roughness and metallic options, and that kind of influences how light falls and hits an object. Got to be careful of the metallic there. I had too much metallic on my previous cube and it looked a little bit weird, but I'm going to leave this as default currently. Go back to our rotation and I'll set it to off-axis front so that we're kind of in line here, but we'll just quickly go over to the lighting and add some lighting to that plane. Keep it at standard. Maybe we'll turn the shadow on, and we'll need to add the ray trace on to see that happening. That's what I was doing. Need to drop the below object position on for the shadow there. Just go back and reset that. I want it to be in line, I suppose, with our other object there. Intensity down a bit, ambient light up a little bit. But it's the softness, I think, that really kind of makes these shadows. If you go too soft, you need to bring up the shadow bounds. And that's kind of looking how I wanted it to look. So that's a plane. Let's create another object and we'll look at another 3D type. So, I'm not really creating an object, I'm creating a vector here and a rectangle. Head over to the 3D types. This time we're going to revolve around this this rectangle, which allows us to create kind of some curved shapes, cylindrical objects, like so. So it's wrapped it round on itself. We can do that in two ways, from the left edge, from the right edge. Our rectangle is similar on each side, so it's not going to really matter which way we do it. But if you've got an odd shaped object, you might need to check the left and the right edge. We can change the angle of our revolution. We can twist it a little bit, which I never find that useful. And we can taper it a bit, but don't find that very useful for the revolve either. You can turn on and off the cap, so it could be an empty kind of shape. And we get down to the rotation, and we rotate it in a similar way that we do all other objects on the X, Y, and Z coordinates. And remember that when you rotate an object, your light source seems to rotate with the object, which is not very intuitive from my perspective. I'm going to go back and set it to off-axis front, and just very quickly we'll match in the shadow with the other objects. I'm going to do it, set it to below the object, so behind the object is kind of like the object's up against a wall. Below object is more or less that the ground plane is beneath the object. Flip around the rotation, adjust the softness, and we're not seeing any adjustment in the softness because I haven't turned on the ray trace option. While we're here, let's have a quick look at the ray tracing options. We can actually adjust the quality of the ray tracing options. We can also adjust the render settings. If you notice that your 3D object is looking a little low res, that's because your document raster effect settings are set to low res, and we can increase that to make our 3D renders much crisper, but it really does take a lot more time to preview them. So if you want to upscale the resolution, I suggest you do that right at the end of the project when you're about to sort of output it, export it. Our final 3D type is what they call inflate. So we'll grab another little square there, head back to object, and we're going to inflate this one. And that sort of turns it into a kind of a pillowy sort of shape. It sort of just sort of blows it up. And I'll just set the rotation so that we can see it on an angle. But we can expand the depth of that inflation. We can twist it and taper it. Again, not that useful. Just the volume, so we can really make it kind of a little harder, but more pillowy at that end. We can also inflate both sides, so we get this kind of object that can rotate. We can fully rotate it completely around, which is good, which is useful. So that's our 4 object types, 3D types for our 3D work in Illustrator. We've got the plane, which allows us to create kind of 2D elements in 3D space. We've got the extrude, which allows us to take a vector and kind of extend it into 3D, into Z space. We've got the revolve, which allows us to kind of use a lathe almost to create a shape. And we've got the inflate option. Just to finish off this video, might just do another shape with the inflate tool and add a different texture to it. Grabbing a circle, and I'm going to turn it into a 3D object with the inflate 3D type. And you can see we can make almost a globe. I'm going to drop the depth right down and set the rotation to off-axis front, but I'll inflate both sides so I get that nice voluminous globe feel. Now that I've got a globe, it might be worthwhile adding an appropriate globey kind of texture, and I thought there was maybe a moonscape sort of texture in here somewhere. Just quickly, God, there it is there. It's called Comet Pit. Add that, and we can create a pretty sort of realistic planetary type of object there. Bit of fun.